Hey everybody, today we're talking to Motorcop, the infamous Jason Hoschouer, about traffic safety. If you like what you've been seeing here on the show, please do subscribe or like below. Support us on Facebook, support us on Patreon. Do everything you can to keep us going, and we'll keep bringing you videos and conversations like this. Thank you so much for being here today. Now let's get on with the show.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Safest Family on the Block, where knowledge is power. I'm Jason Brick, your host, and with me today is Jason Hoschouer, the famous, infamous, legendary motor cop. Jason.
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 Jason. You know, I've looked for years to come onto a show where not only can I do this bit, but it's really easy to remember everybody's name.
I know, right?
Yeah, I don't know why you don't just locate Jasons to do this entire thing. How easy can that be?
Yeah, my wife has a celebrity crush on Jason Momoa. So
okay,
she's real clever about that because I can never tell if she's accidentally calling me Jason Momoa.
She is.
Yeah, probably.
Not accidentally.
Jason Momoa. I accidentally call her Jason Momoa from time to time.
That's where it gets weird. I'm not here to judge your journey, man. All right.
All right. Family show. Family
show.
So Jason comes to us after 22 years as a police officer. And even before that, he served as a dispatcher at his college, was in corrections, was on patrol, currently serves as a field training officer in patrol, but spent the bulk of his career as a motor cop, hence the name, doing traffic stops, pulling people out of cars when they made mistakes in cars, seeing the results of when parents make mistakes behind the wheel or with the operation of their vehicle. And he's here to talk to us about that today so we can avoid those mistakes as much as possible. So thank you, Jason, for coming on to the show.
My pleasure. You know, it still blows me away that I got a paycheck for 13 years every 2 weeks consistently to ride a motorcycle. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
That is living the dream, man.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was an amazing 13 years.
Very cool. Very cool. But despite the fact that you enjoyed that part, there are parts of it that were really just tragic, and I can't imagine. I've read your blog a few times, and you have a few that literally haunt me. The one about your first call to preventable drowning.
Oh, yeah.
Your first responses to accidents.
Yep.
And you know, the goal of this show is that so that you and your colleagues don't have to answer those calls as often. And so, could you talk to us a bit? What's the number one thing parents are doing in cars that they could just stop today that would make your life and other motor cops' lives better?
You know, there are so many things I could just rattle off, but throughout my entire career, predating me being a cop, it'll continue after I retire, God willing, soon. The very simplest thing, slow down. Just slow down. You may go automatically to, well, get off the cell phone, stop, doing your makeup while you're driving, stop reading the paper, stop answering emails, blah, and those are all absolutely valid. But the number one cause of collisions in this country since cars were created is speeding. It's going too fast. And it's not just exceeding the speed limit, because we can get into a whole debate about, how fast is too fast and depending on the conditions of the road and all that kind of stuff. It's thinking that you are a much better driver than you actually are. The lion's share of the population, actually halfway decent drivers. But here's where it gets problematic is there's this old wives' tale that, and I'm sure you've heard it. Well, actually, I will ask you a question. I'm going to flip the tables on you. How fast or how much can you exceed the speed limit without getting pulled over?
So theoretically, I think it's 0. But then
not theoretically. What have you always heard? How fast can you go over the speed limit before it becomes a problem, before you're going to get stopped?
Well, I've always heard somewhere around 5 or 10, depending what state I was living in at the time.
There you go. Then that's pretty much clear across the board. It typically, I've heard for decades, 10 miles an hour. So I always took the extra, because I'm a kind and benevolent motor officer, I will give you 13. So if you hit 13 miles an hour over the speed limit, I'm going to stop you. I'm going to cite you. and you're going to have a relatively immediate consequence for the thing you just did. One of the first collisions, serious collisions where a death was involved that I went to, it references back to the post you're talking about, I called the Screams, was a 19-year-old college student going uphill in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. And this is pretty extreme. She's doing about 95 and lost control of the car, hits a curb, pitches it, hits a telephone pole or a tree or the thing that's always going to win, and then the car literally blew up. It looked like a roadside bomb. And because I was new on what we call the impact team, think of it as a major accident response team. I always wanted to call it the fatal accident response team, but I don't think they're going to let me put that acronym on the back of my shirt. Bad dad joke, but there you go.
There are no bad dad jokes.
That's true. I was on the prism pole, right? So you're in charge of putting the pole where the point of evidence is. You hold it still. You make sure it's balanced, and then there's a machine that'll shoot a laser into it. It's a whole nerdy thing. But I put that pole on 87 different pieces of body evidence of this young woman that was literally blown apart. And it was, I will never forget it. I remember it like it was yesterday. And then I remember when the mom showed up on scene and let loose this howl that I will never forget. I will never, ever forget. And, you know, obviously that's over 13 miles an hour, but collisions happen just like that. Hundreds, thousands of a second is all it takes. You know, oftentimes when I'm citing people for speed, and I had a kid, this is actually fairly recently, in the last month or so, I was in court, and this kid, God bless him, he laid out a great, in his opinion, I mean, for a 17-year-old kid, it wasn't bad, a defense of why his speed was safe for conditions. And I just, you know, he just said all of this stuff, and the judge looks at me and says, you know, Officer Hoschouer, would you like to respond to anything? Oh, most assuredly. So I busted out all the math very, very quickly. And this is going to get a little nerdy, and I'll try to be brief, but the way you change miles per hour to feet per second is you multiply it by 1.467. It's a constant, it's a whole math thing. So I just do it by 1.5 and kind of round it down a little bit. So if he's doing 50 miles an hour, he's going about 72 feet per second. Per second. Human perception and reaction time is 1.5 seconds. So you're looking at about 100 and let's say 5 feet before you can perceive and react to anything. And even then, you may or may not be able to avoid it. So I laid that math out there, and he was like, dang. He was found guilty because he was going too fast based on the other circumstances, driveways. You know, it was a residential neighborhood that happened to be a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. And, you know, lateral changes in direction, vertical changes in direction. You're just going too fast. And kids suck at driving. They're not good. But I'll tell you this, you know who else sucks at driving? Parents. Everybody always says it's those darn kids that are in the neighborhood. No, it's not. The average, I did a study a long time ago. I took the average age of the person I stopped for an entire month, wrote like 150 tickets. The average age was about 42. So everybody's guilty of violating the vehicle code. Everybody. But speed consistently across the board tends to be the number one cause of collisions. And some of them are fender benders. Some of them are no big deal. And some of them people die.
That puts me in mind of something one of my mentors used to say when I was a young driver about a lot of us, we think we can speed because we're good drivers. But like you're saying, that cuts down our reaction speed when that idiot over there does something stupid, or that little kid runs out from between those two garbage cans.
Yep.
Or
absolutely.
we hit that ice patch.
Yeah. And that perception reaction time, we're not superhuman. I am just as, I had to adhere to the laws of physics just like everybody else. You know, and I've told people this on their birthday, on Christmas, on a holiday, whatever. The laws of physics still apply today. But it's my birthday. Well, I don't care. Happy birthday. Here, live to see another year. Here's your, $300 reminder that you need to slow down. Yeah. And I never felt bad about that, not once. Because motor officers have no soul. I don't know if you know that. They surgically remove it.
Is that how it happens?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. You go to a class and you drink this really disgusting sludge, and then you fall asleep and you wake up and you're just this heartless bastard.
Okay, that makes sense. I had always heard that it was like a succubus kind of situation. But no, apparently you drink.
Yeah, that's for the advanced. That's the advanced motor officer. I didn't want to. I didn't want to go that dark on a family show. Okay. But yeah. There's some sacrifices of goats and whatnot. It's a whole thing.
All right. So slow down. Slow down.
Yeah, slow down. And we tell first responders the exact same thing on our podcast. You had Justin on your very first episode. I co-host the What's Your Emergency podcast with him, and we talk about it often. Slow down. When I am training incoming police officers, when I either am training in the academy or if I'm teaching them on the street, that's one of the first things we talk about is slow down. Yeah, we have lights and sirens. We get to go fast and violate the vehicle code, but just because we can violate the vehicle laws, again, we can't violate the laws of physics. We are just as beholden to them as everybody else. So when we're blowing intersections and we're not slowing down and looking both ways, and we take out that minivan, that's on us, period. We're at fault, and that's bad.
Well, that's behind the trend that I became aware of fairly recently, but it might have been going on for longer, about more and more police departments are just saying no high-speed chases.
Yeah.
We'll catch them later. We'll run the plates. We'll put it on APB, but we're not going to go 70 in a school zone just to catch this guy.
Yeah, at the end of the day, let's think about, there's also the reason for the chase. That factors in huge. Now, if he's got a kidnapped kid in the car, or he's just he's an active shooter and now he's fleeing. He's just murdered 7 people, but we're going to chase that car until the wheels fall off. But if it's a stolen vehicle, hey guys, that's just a property crime. Who cares? The insurance is going to cover the car. I'm not going to sacrifice my life, certainly, and not the lives of the public. Hell, not even the life of the dirtbag that stole the car. It's not worth it. It's just a property crime. It's not a violent crime, unless it's a carjacking or something that would tend to make you think that this kind of activity is going to continue and people are going to get hurt even more if we let them go. But more often than not, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Now, we don't have a policy of no chases, but a lot of departments do. What we do have is the officer's ability to think outside the box, remember policy. We've got supervisors listening to the radio, likely trying to catch up to the pursuit, and it can always be canceled. It can be canceled by the guy chasing. If I'm pursuing somebody, I'm thinking to myself, well, this is wildly stupid. I'm going to cancel myself. That's just the way it works. You have to be aware of the risks that you're taking. And that applies to the public as well. You have to be aware of the risks you're taking. If you're, in a 45 mile per hour speed limit and you're on your phone and you're doing 45 miles per hour, are you speeding?
Under basic law, yeah.
Absolutely. We have a law here in California. When it first came out, the cell phone law was written really poorly. So the defense in court started to be, well, I was using my phone as a GPS, which was legal. So when I pulled somebody over and said, I stopped because you're on your phone. Well, I'm using it as a map. Oh, okay, cool. You got your license with you? Here's your citation. But I told you I'm on GPS. Yeah, no, I didn't cite you for the cell phone violation. I cited you for speeding. But I was doing 45 in a 45. Well, that's true, but what's the safe speed for not looking at the road in front of you? That's 0. I never lost that in court, ever. I won it every single time. And then they rewrote the law, and then now you can't even conceptualize of holding your phone. So
yeah. So what is That is something that's coming up in every state. What advice do you have for people who are navigating in unfamiliar territory with a GPS on their phone? What's the best ways to balance those two things about needing to get from A to B and needing to drive safely and obey the law?
Well, if you're driving with other people, that's an easy answer. Have your passenger hold the damn phone. It's not that hard, right? My 8-year-old can crack the code on how to hold a phone and say, Daddy, turn right at the next stop. That's not a big deal. If you're by yourself, there are this many mounts that you can buy at any big box store, online. I have one in my car. You just pop it in there. Before I bought the new used car, I had a Bluetooth stereo in my old car. Connect it by Bluetooth and it'll talk to you over your radio. And you don't have to touch it at all. That's it. You're allowed one tap or one swipe in California, which honestly I think is kind of silly. If you're going to answer a call, sometimes it takes 2 pushes. If you're going to push, answer and then maybe speakerphone, well, that's 2. That's a violation. Come on. I'm not so, hardcore that's a problem. It's when you're doing this and, you're kind of driving and all that's distracting, and I'm human just like anybody else, despite what Justin says. It's not something that is easy to do because we've become so attached to our devices. It's very easy to just, look at it, hold it, whatever. If that's a problem for you, throw it in the back seat. And if you have to do something, you're going to be forced to pull over so you can reach it and then handle your call or whatever. When I see people pulled over to the side of the road and they're on their phone, awesome. I don't care if it says no parking or not. I'm like, hey, I'd rather have them stop here for 2 minutes to answer that call than drive down the road like a moron, not paying attention to what's in front of them.
Excellent. So we've talked about speeding and phones, and I think there's some other ones that parents know about already about, driving drunk or under the influence, et cetera. The kind of no-brainers.
Yeah.
What are some things that you see on a daily basis or a regular basis that are distracting drivers, making accidents worse in some ways that maybe parents don't think about? Some dark horses, if you will.
It's funny. One of the things that's, I don't know if it's happening a lot lately, but today in California where I am, it's supposed to hit like 109. It's just stupid. And we had a rash, was it last year before, where people forget their kids in the car. How do you do that? How do you forget your kid in a car? I don't understand that. And then there became a trend of, leave your cell phone in the back seat so you don't forget your child. So what you're telling me is your cell phone is more important to you than your offspring. There's a disconnect there that I can't wrap my brain around. One of the things that is really frustrating for me that I know Justin talked about with you, and that's securing your kids. If I'm sitting in a duck pond, which is, where I would sit to watch people do stupid things on the road, and I would see little Johnny hanging out the window, that kid's not secured. And at least here in California, that is remarkably expensive. It's like a $500 or $700 fine. And of course, depending on the attitude of the driver, maybe I'd have a conversation with the kid and maybe or maybe not give them a warning because it's a hefty fine. But if the driver's a jerk, forget it. You're getting a ticket, no problem. And if they're above a given age, I can cite not only the passenger, but the driver as well. So everybody gets a ticket and that's fantastic. Dark horses though, I don't know that there's anything that I've seen that, like you said, the obvious ones, driving under the influence. Sometimes prescription medications can sneak up on you. Where I work, people love their medication. Absolutely love it. I stopped a lady, years ago, had 2 kids in the car. She was the nanny or the au pair or whatever. And she actually got on the freeway, which in and of itself doesn't sound bad. The problem was she got on to the off-ramp. So, I don't know what it's like where you are, but that's frowned upon here in California. So I stopped her and she was absolutely wrecked. Absolutely wrecked. Called the parents and they lost their minds, came down to the scene, and obviously she was fired and taken to jail and whatnot. But that was the middle of the day. Middle of the day. So you never know what you're going to find when you stop that car. You just don't. Cell phones, heck, even putting on makeup, men or women, I don't care. Maybe you're on your way to, an acting gig and you got to get ready. I don't know. Obviously, cell phones, any kind of electronic device is going to be distracting. Eating can be very distracting. There's so many activities that basically what it comes down to is just think to yourself, if something happened in front of me right now, am I ready for it? I like to play a little game I've done for years is, what is that car ahead of me going to do right now? And I'll play with the wife. Like we'll be on a road trip and like, that car's going to change lanes. And then boom, it comes over. She's like, how do you do that? I pay attention. People, we aren't real good at paying attention. I don't care if you're at 10 and 2 or 7 and 9 or no, that would be over here, right? So 4 and 8, I guess, whatever. If you shuffle steer, if you do this kind of thing, if you're going up, there's so many things we learn in EVOC training. All it comes down to is, am I paying attention to what's happening around me, which means in front of you, to the sides, behind you. With rear view cameras, great piece of technology, but there's still nothing wrong with turning your head and looking. We've gotten into I had a trainee, God bless her. We were in a parking lot and she's backing out and she hits a parked car. So, well, I was looking in the rear view. I'm like, yeah, I know the camera's right there. I was blown away. She didn't look, right? Pay attention to what's going on around you. It's unfortunate that's the dark horse, right? Because there's no law that says you must pay attention. It's more common sense. And I think that's where we come up short a lot in the driving public is just having some common sense and paying attention.
Well, it seems like driving is one of those skills that once we get used to it, once we get that baseline level of competence, which most of us do in our 20s, it becomes easy to become almost contemptuous of the task. And we get bored driving.
Yep.
And then that vigilance relaxes. It's a little bit like doing security work where you've been in law enforcement. I've done some security as well, where 95% of the time you're bored out of your mind, and the other 5% of the time you really wish you were bored.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That sums up law enforcement very well.
But that's also true in driving. And hopefully for most of us, it's much less than 5% of the time we wish we were bored. But that boredom then turns into distraction, turns into fiddling with your phone, hitting up your Facebook at a stoplight, whatnot.
Have you ever gotten home and been like, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah.
You just go on autopilot. And that is one of the common excuses I get when I stop somebody is, well, I live in the neighborhood. Well, then you should be paying even more attention, because if you hit little Johnny or little Susie, you have to face mom and dad every day you drive by here. That's a problem. Yeah. And it like you said, it becomes rote. You just kind of, and then boom, you're home. And there have been a couple of times where it kind of freaked me out. I mean, I didn't hit anybody. I didn't do anything wrong, but it just becomes this habit that is, it's no big deal. And we take it for granted. We take paying attention for granted.
Yeah. I wanted to circle back to something you were mentioning, prescription medications. Quick shameless plug. In a little while, we're going to be interviewing Andrea Lashak, who's a pharmacist, about drug interactions and drug safety. But one of the things that a lot of folks don't know well is how their prescription medication that they just got for their back pain or whatnot might interact with the prescription medication they've been taking for their heart and result in being completely incapable of driving. But nobody thought to mention that because nobody checked up on the interactions of those drugs. So being aware of drug interactions is important to safe driving as well.
Absolutely. And I will assume that the pharmacist is going to say, ordinarily we will check for cross-drug problems. If you're if you're buying your prescription medication out of a van in the alleyway, maybe take it upon yourself to do a little Google search about Vicodin and Ambien. Should I put these things together? I'm gonna guess no, not a pharmacist.
Yeah. What she actually says is that her job as a pharmacist is to keep doctors from killing people.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Her job is to cross-reference, but you get one drug from the pharmacy on this side of town and one from the other, and they don't talk to each other.
Yep.
That there's a possibility there of getting into a lot deeper trouble than you wanted.
Oh God, yes.
So this boils down to largely slow down and pay more attention.
I should put it on a bumper sticker.
There's something that I've been interested about because I've seen a piece here and a piece there, but I haven't seen anything really robust about the importance of keeping your car clean, because that pencil you've got on the dashboard, if you get in an accident, that thing's coming at you at how many feet per second? And I'm curious, from your perspective as somebody who's seen a lot, is that an urban legend or is that something that we should really pay attention to?
No, that's absolutely true. As a matter of fact, again, at least in California, there is a vehicle code about being able to see. And so if you've got, let's say you're a hoarder in your car. I mean, I've seen cars drive down the road and I'm like, oh my God, how are they not crashing? I mean, just all kinds of stuff on the dash. And it looks like they've got a porthole that they're looking. Well, that is remarkably unsafe, patently unsafe. And I can stop them and cite them or take whatever enforcement action I need to. But yeah, physics, again, everything comes down to physics. If you get into a crash, all of that stuff is now either blunt objects or in the case of the pencil, that's a missile coming at your face. And that's not something you want to happen. Anything that is not secured in the interior of your vehicle, including your passengers, they're going to get bounced around and obviously cause more injury to themselves and potentially to other occupants of the vehicle. So secure your stuff. I don't like traveling around with a bunch of loose stuff in my car. I don't keep anything on the dashboard, with the exception of my cell phone holder, but it's got a suction cup. So, I mean, it's pretty secure. I haven't tested it into a barrier to see how much force it would take to remove it, but I'd like to think that I'd be okay.
And whatever you do, don't do that thing that you see on the internet every once in a while where people basically bedazzle their steering wheels.
Oh God.
Put helium crystals on their steering wheels, thus turning their airbag into a Claymore landmine.
I'll be back in a minute. I'm kidding. So here's an interesting thing. I tell my wife every time we're in the car on a road trip, she loves to put her feet up on the dash. And every time I see her start to move, nope, put them down. Think about that. How much force is coming at you? It is a small explosion inside the dashboard of your vehicle that is sending out a life-saving device at a remarkable amount of speed and force, and it's going to shatter your legs. You're going to end up eating your own knees in a very uncomfortable position. Keep your feet off the dashboard. Don't let your kids put their feet on the dashboard or even on the seat back. My God, my kids love to do this. Drives me insane. Putting their feet on the seat in front of them. If we're in a collision and there is any kind of compression, that's a problem. Body mechanics in collisions is a fascinating thing. I mean, it's nerdy as all get out, but really when we're investigating a collision, let's say everybody's dead and we need to figure out what seat they were in, yada, yada, yada. There are ways that we can do that, based on damage from obviously seatbelts or injuries they've sustained. We had a vehicle pet a number of years ago, and there was conflicting information about which way the pedestrian was walking. Well, when we got to the autopsy, she had a lower leg injury on her left side. So that told us which direction she was walking, because we knew which direction the car was going. So if the car's coming this way and she's walking this way and this is her left side, but if she's coming towards me and away from you and the injury is on the left side, that's weird. We got to figure out why.
Yeah, so not putting the feet up when you're in the passenger side.
Yep.
Note to self. I'm guilty of that.
As am I, but when you get comfortable, you're like, oh, this feels, oh God, no.
Yeah. And keeping the car cleaner, keeping those missiles from throwing around. Any advice for dealing with the inherent distractiveness? Distractiveness, is that a word?
I like distractiosity.
Yes, the distractiosity of,
you're welcome,
especially toddlers in the backseat. What are some of the best ways that you know of or have seen to do your job as a parent there while doing your job as a parent here?
When we're on road trips, I put in headphones and let the wife deal with it. How's that for an easy answer?
That works for me. I have an idea.
Yeah. So the easy answer is have that conversation while you're maybe glancing up at them in the rear view. You do not need to turn your head to chat with someone when you're at a stop sign or a stoplight. If it's a fairly intense conversation that needs dad's attention or mom's attention, if she's the one driving, pull over. You don't have to get to wherever you're going that quickly. Is your kid important right now, or is going to where you need to go more important? Make that call and then do the thing that needs to be done. So if where you're going, if you've got a very important appointment you're trying to get to, and they're yammering away in the back, hey, honey, I need to concentrate on what I'm doing. I need you to be quiet. I would love to answer your question. Give daddy or give mommy 20 minutes, and I'll answer that question when we get to wherever it is we're going. Be a parent. You don't have to answer every single why question. I've got 3 daughters, and I've answered why more times than I know what to do. And now it's just, oh God, because life's unfair. Just tell them that. You know what? Life's not fair. And you keep driving. But I wanted a cookie. Life's not fair.
With my little guy, I'd always go to, well, because of physics. And then
I'd shut him up. I don't know what that means.
Well, that was the funny thing he did, right? Because it would always nail down all the way to that. Well, that's the way of the universe, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's physics. And then I remember he said that he got lonely in his bunk bed because he'd been sleeping on the floor for like weeks. Like, well, why don't you sleep in your bunk bed? I get lonely up there. Well, why is that, buddy? What's lonely about it? Oh, physics.
Well, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not. He's literally talking about time and distance. I mean, I get it.
It's weird.
That kid's going to cure cancer.
Yeah. Or put me in an early grave, or both.
Whatever.
So before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions, but I'd like to give our guests an opportunity to talk about what projects they have going on. I mean, you are Motorcop.
True.
So tell us a bit about where we can find you.
Sad face.
Oh no.
So yeah, if you just Google Motorcop, I come up number 1. Now I co-host What's Your Emergency with Justin Shore, the Happy Medic. We rebranded and relaunched 2 years ago, 2018, August 2018, and we used to have this other show which we refuse to name anymore. We had an explicit tag, and it was glorious. But when Justin tried to get a new job and they heard the show and they were like, nope, you got to stop doing that. So we rebranded and absolutely love podcasting. I am on the side. I'm many things. We talk about this on the show a lot, not solely defining yourself as one thing. I'm not, a lot of people are like, well, I'm a cop. okay, that's one of the things I am, but it's like number 7 or 8 on the list. But one of the other things I am is a financial coach. And I love budgeting. I'm a numbers nerd. The wife and I paid off almost $78,000 in debt in 28 months, almost a decade ago. We owe nothing to anybody except for our home. And it has put us in a position to be able to do and see and experience all kinds of stuff that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So my side project has been to create a 5-day budgeting challenge where people can come in and learn how to make a budget. Because people always say, just budget for it. What does that mean? How do I start? How do I sustain it? I don't understand where to begin, how to compile everything. And this 5-day challenge walks you through all of it. And it's set to launch end of August, sometime in September, perhaps. Still putting the final touches on it and figuring out the whole technical aspect of how am I going to get this to folks. So eventually that'll be available. I think I have a sign up for people that are interested, just to put them in my email so I can reach out when it does launch. And if memory serves, if you just go to themotocopmindset.com/budget challenge, that should get you where you want to go.
Excellent. This episode will probably drop after you go live, so I'll make sure we have links.
Perfect. Awesome.
In the schnotes for you.
Excellent. Then I'll make a note to actually make that link exist.
Excellent. That always helps. That always helps.
Absolutely. Wouldn't be the first time I forgot something.
Like your kid in the back of the car.
Not me. Nope.
No. Yeah, I can't remember whether it was Justin who was telling me about this or something I read on my own, but apparently where that happens the most often is when a parent who is not the usual parent is responsible to take a young kid to daycare.
Yep.
And then they just get on that autopilot we were just talking about and walk into the office completely spacing that they had this precious life in the back of their car.
Yeah. And on a day like today, it's supposed to be in the 100 and stupids for the next 5 or 6 days. And like you said, that autopilot, man, that can be vicious. And one minor oversight with zero intention of causing any harm whatsoever can result in the loss of a life that you care about a whole hell of a lot.
And I think that one of the misconceptions about car-related stuff is we think about the drunk drivers. We think about the teen texting. We think about the stereotypical idiot parent who left their kid in the car while they ran into the grocery store and then fell to gossiping. We think about these objectively irresponsible decisions by objectively irresponsible people because that's what hits the news. That's what sells newspapers. That's what gets clicks. But from what I'm hearing from you and from other folks, what often is going on is simple inattention by people who are generally responsible, competent human beings.
Absolutely.
And fighting that inattention. Do you know any tricks? Like we were talking earlier about how as a police officer, you're spending 95% of your time bored. And let's be honest, as parents, especially parents of toddlers, there's a lot of boredom going on. You can't be fascinated as much as we love our kids and are fascinated by watching them learn and explore the world. I can't love Dora the Explorer or Terraria, the video game, as much as my kid does. Are there tips, are there tricks to remaining focused and aware in these moments of boredom, in these moments of rote exercise that parents could maybe apply?
A long time ago, I started doing something that it's called the Miracle Morning, and it's by a guy named Hal Elrod. Fantastic book, can't recommend it enough. But he talks about starting your day with intentionality. So when I am at work and not off duty or off on injury as I am now, I get up an hour before I need to. So I don't have to. I go 10:08 on duty at 6 a.m. I don't leave my house until about 5:30, 5:35. I don't have to get up until probably about 10 after 5, but I get up at 4:10 in the morning on purpose every single workday to get done for me, to pay attention to myself, for it's selfish as the day is long, but I'm accomplishing more before 6 a.m. than most people do all day long, right? I'll do some some studying, or, I'll read a devotional, or I will do a little exercise, whatever it is. So my point here is I'm being intentional with my time, and I will also plan out my day. Same thing applies when I am not working. The wife and kids have been off this week scouting out places for us to move eventually in Oregon or in Washington. And I've written out every single day, this is what I want to accomplish today. And I have a thing called the Best Self Journal that you can break down your day by half-hour increments. So you can spend that time paying attention to, it can be, daddy-daughter time or daddy-son time or whatever. And then using technology to your advantage. I set reminders on our Alexa all the time. When I think to myself, ooh, I need to remember to do that. If I don't make note of it, either write it down or tell Alexa to remind me, forget it. I am not going to remember it. Recording this budgeting challenge I've done this week, and I've had to unplug the freezer because it has this low-level hum that drove me insane. I had to set a reminder, otherwise all of our food would spoil. There's no way in hell I'm going to remember that. It's just not going to happen. So leveraging digital technology and analog stuff as well. Write things down, make a list, be intentional. And I have found that by doing that, you build these habits over time, and I am much less likely to zone out. I'm much less likely to just get, drawn in. I recognize now, whoa, you've been looking at your phone here for quite some time. I've got a 13, almost 14-year-old, and when I look at her and I'm like, hey, you spent a lot of time on the phone today. And then I look over and I see my wife doing the same thing, or I just got off my phone. It's like, try and be more intentional and leading by example, really, because you're the hero for your kid. Everything you do, they are paying attention. Circle all the way back to the beginning of our episode here. They're watching how you operate a motor vehicle. They're watching how you treat other drivers. They're going to become exactly the example you have set. So be cognizant of that. That's a lot of responsibility.
So mindfulness, intentionality, remembering that there's an audience. A lot of us, anybody who's been on stage or had a cop behind us on the road, all of a sudden with that awareness, we're paying a lot of attention at that point. Okay. That's very good insight. One last question for you before we wrap up. This is not your first rodeo being interviewed. You've been on podcasts. You've done some press things. Is there anything you wish people asked you more often when you were being interviewed?
How are you? Just ask me how I'm doing, man. I'm not all about your content. Maybe I'm having a rough day, you selfish... No, I'm kidding. I am an introvert, which is weird for somebody that loves public speaking. I never thought I would like public speaking. And then I joined Toastmasters, and then I became an academy instructor, and then I became a master instructor certified by the California Post Police Officer Standards and Training. I love curriculum design. I love to teach, but it's freaking exhausting. As an introvert, I get re-energized by everybody else leaving me, the expletive deleted, alone. Just leave me alone. Like after this, I'm going to go sit on my couch, ice my back, and chill out. Nobody's home, and I'm going to feel better in like a half hour, But my wife always told me, you're great at parties. I hate going to parties. She said, but you're a cop. Yeah, I know, but I don't necessarily want everybody to know what I do. But everybody loves cop stories. Even in today's day and age where, we're trying to defund the police and we're all bad guys and 95% of society still appreciates what we do, who we are, and the sacrifices that we make every single day. And they love cop stories. But being a constant source of that is pretty exhausting. So, honestly, the first thing that came to mind, because I'm such a smart aleck, is, other than what I did, would be like, hey, you're about to tell us a story. Would you like a drink first? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. Thank you very much. I'm not driving. Damn it.
Yeah, my local is within walking distance of my house, and that's strategic.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming on today, Jason. I think that a lot of this information can help some of us make decisions that will make you want a drink a little less often. And at least that's the goal.
Just be responsible. Again, that's all I ask.
Slow down, pay attention, and clean your car appears to be the major things there. And
yeah,
again,
it seems easy. Seems easy.
Well, again, thank you very much for your service and for coming on today. And
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, take care.
All right, man. Be safe.
Thank you for joining us today. If you like what you see, please do hit the subscribe button and the like button. It helps more than you know. If you love this, please tell a friend, find us on Facebook, or back our efforts on Patreon.